All right, let's stop that. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Disc Training. I'm excited about this one. The disc is something I'm really passionate about because I feel it makes us better realtors when you understand it. So today we have Mr. Mike Shaw. Mr. Mike Shaw, welcome.
What's happening? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on. So if you don't know Mike used to run a mega team here in St. Louis. He is a realtor with Network Global currently. He's also a national coach, consultant, works for Rieger Coaching and Consulting. He's a speaker, a trainer. He's got a ton of real estate knowledge. He's got a lot of knowledge around the disc. That's why we asked him to be here, and we appreciate you sharing your time with us this morning, Mike. So good morning. We got more people jumping on right now. And then if you're on Facebook as well, if you have comments, drop them. If you wish to jump on stage with us and ask questions, drop it in the comment as well, and we will pull you up here. And looks like, we got a lot of good mornings coming in. So, Mr. Mike.
All right.
Yours. Appreciate you being on.
Hey, I saw a familiar name in there, Lisa Dickerson. You get to see this all again. I know you liked this when we did it last time. So thanks for joining. And thanks for everybody else for coming on today as well. Guys, so I coach locally and I coach around the nation. And I just want to tell you guys first, just kind of my intro is that we're in an industry where there's a lot of variables, right? When is my next commission coming in? If I'm taking a lead, or when's my next referral, or what's going to happen when the phone rings, or what's going to happen with my listing? Am I going to get offers? There's so many different things that we have to worry about variable wise. I just want you to know that just from talking to agents and teams and brokerages all across the nation, real estate's the same everywhere. The constant, if you can believe this, is the market. That's the one thing that we know is wild. The market's ever changing. It's going fast. It's sometimes confusing us. It's the realtor. It's you that's the variable, right? It's you that is the variable in how can I attack the business? How can I make this job easier? How can I be more efficient? Because that's the way you gain market share. That's the way you leapfrog your competition. And being paranoid that somebody else out there is figuring it out faster than you, that's where you can leap ahead. So just going to intro with that, because when we talk about, like, a lot of things that I'll coach revolve around how can we just do what we're already doing better? And a lot of times I'll talk to teams about how to convert leads, right? And leads are just people that come to you from anywhere, right? Door knocking, mailers, the internet, what have you. But how can we convert these people? Nothing's a gimme, right? And one of the weeks that I'll coach teams is we'll talk about DISC. And DISC is I wouldn't even call it underrated. I would call it probably the most underrated aspect of conversion possible. And here's why. In the age of I'm going to try to hold my hands up right here. In the age of being a realtor, what we know and what the consumer knows, that gap is shrinking. Or at least in my perception, the gap is shrinking. And the modern consumer knows a ton of things about real estate, or they have attitudes about real estate that we have to overcome and show them that the gap of what we know and what they know is still vast. We don't get a lot of time to produce that feeling, right? So first impressions matter. I'm going to give you this and then we'll hit DISC. Harvard did a study, and you can go to scienceofpeople.com to read up on this, but Harvard did a study that says the average person needs 7 seconds, only 7 seconds, to decide if they like you or not. And that comes in a capacity of business, a first date, a job interview, whatever it is, right? But the average person, meaning a lot of people, don't need that much time. You want to know the crazier stat though, guys? If you give off a bad first impression, the average person needs 8 subsequent positive interactions with you to get over the first negative impression of you. How wild is that? You guys are probably already thinking, well, in real estate, I don't get 8 do-overs. I don't even get 1 do-over. That's precisely the point though, right? So in DISC, what we're trying to do, there's 2 objectives in DISC, right? The first objective is take the test, and I'm going to put in the chat here where I typically like to take it. Hold on one second. I got to copy and paste that again. You can go to Tony Robbins' website. Hold on, please. I had it pulled up and then I didn't. There it is. Cool. So I like to take this. It's free, and you can pay $45 and get the more detailed route of it. But here's what I like about DISC is, number one, I understand who I am, right? Am I a dominant personality? Am I an influencer? Am I a stabilizer? Or am I conscientious? And I'll display some graphics here for you in a second. The second step is, once you know who you are, right, you know how people's first impressions of you might be, because you're going to know your strengths, you're going to know your emotions, and you're going to know your fears. The second thing is, once you master DISC and you understand your profile, then it becomes very easy to identify who you're talking to and who you're communicating with, because it's very naive for us as realtors to think that everybody should adapt to our style. We have to we have the burden of adapting to everybody else. And when you do that, folks, you create connections, you create trust, you create reliability, so that when a push comes to shove and you need somebody to listen to you or just see things from a different perspective in a transaction, you've already built that because you're vibing, right? And it might be difficult to go play the part of a different profile just to speak their language, but that in my opinion, guys, is conversion, right? So let's talk about this. Can we just, I'm not sure, Mike, how I do this. There it is. So thank you. We have 4 different profiles. And if you guys take the DISC, or if you've already taken it, you might understand that there are 2. Can you guys see my mouse?
No.
Okay. I'm
No.
just like pointing and
Yeah.
like you guys can see it. Wow. You might realize that there's 2 different dominant profiles, or dominant personalities, I guess that's what you want to call it. High D, high dominance. You guys can read faster than I can speak this, but these people are, if you're off the charts D, you're results oriented. You are firm, you're strong willed, you're to the point. When you're talking to somebody on the phone, right? They might just be like, hey, so what attracted you to this house? Or you're talking to somebody at an open house and you're like, hey, what do you think about this place? And they're just like, I like the price. Price is good. It's close to work, right? You can't really unlock a high D, right? So being super social, telling a lot of stories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. High Ds do not want their time wasted. And I'm going to give you a summarized graphic here in a second, just to encapsulate what we're talking about here. But for the sake of time, we're just going to go rifle through this. High Is are generally the life of the party. They're influencers. A good buyer's agent, a really strong buyer's agent, is oftentimes a high I. In trainings, I've noticed over the years, high Is will like to sit at the front of the class. They might wear some brighter clothing. They're always smiling. They're telling stories, and they're just the life of the party most times, right? I'm a high I, if you couldn't tell, but I'm a combination of D and I. Now, Is, when we talk about their fears, you could probably guess that a high I fears being left out. Or if somebody isn't using a lot of words, or they're not reciprocating with the same energy, that I might feel like they're not liked, right? But that's not how it all works, right? So as you can imagine, D's and I's, if you're an overwhelming D and there's an overwhelming I that you're speaking to, that might not mix, right? So there's certain adaptations one needs to make to feel like they're getting along with the other, right? When we move down to S, so the steadiness profile, even-tempered, accommodating, patient, humble, tactful. I like to say that the high S, first of all, guys, the majority of the population is dominant S. And I think it's like high 60%, 68 to 70% of the population is dominant S. And those people, I like to say they have good sit scores. Like they like coming in at 8, they like leaving at 4, they like a list of things to do, they like a routine, they like a schedule, their lunch break, and all that good stuff, right? They're very accommodating to a routine. So as you can imagine, their fears, a good transaction coordinator is oftentimes a high S. A good office admin or an assistant is a really solid S personality most times. And you can imagine the thing that the S fears the most is change. Okay, that's what they don't like, change, right? Could you imagine if you're a high S and you're in the audience right now, and I was like, hey, Leo, I need to speak with you for a second. We're going to make some changes here in the company, and I need you to come to my office and sit down for a little bit, 30 minutes tops. Bring something to write with, okay? Because there's going to be some changes to your role, and we're going to move you over to this side of the office. As an S, are you just like squirming thinking about that conversation in an office? Of course you are, right? So I want to pause here and just camp on S for a bit. If a high S is the majority of the population and a high S fears change, what specifically is it as realtors that we do for a living? Somebody put in the chat if you guys want to. I'll give you 10 seconds. What is it that we do for a living in general? Don't say sell houses.
No chats coming in yet, but I'm going to say it. We help people change. Right?
Yeah,
we help them change a house essentially.
Yeah,
go from one place to another.
We help people. Yeah, we help people change their entire living situation. Right? It's stressful. Right? There's like death and the dentist and moving, like top 3 things that people don't want to do. Right? And I think as realtors, if we barge in, there you go. Thank you, Jody. Hey, Jody's here. Yeah. Jody's heard this before. But if you look at this from a perspective of your personality and it's not an S, that can be oil and water, right? You just might not be mixing. I always equate it to like at a listing situation. Like if I'm walking into someone's house and I'm DI all over the place and I'm like, hey, baby, let's do this. I'll take my shoes off and put my bag over there and we'll take a lap around the house and we'll talk about the marketing and the steps and I'll tell you what you need to do to fix the house and we'll get the photographer in here and bing, bang, boom. And we'll go live on April 22nd and blah, 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 or May 22nd. An S is going to be totally redlining at this. So an S, and I'm camping on this for a reason because this is most of the people that you guys probably speak with in real estate, or at least in this market, people turn into an S because there's a lot of change involved, a lot of market uncertainty. You do not want to speak your language when you're speaking with an S. It's going to freak them out. It's going to drive them away. It's going to make them feel like this was a bad decision. Instead, if you guys want to chat, what adaptation should you make with an S who's afraid of change and you're not, you're off the charts D, I, or C? What could we do to make an S feel like we got their back?
Drop the comments in. And also I wanted to say too, if you guys want to come up here with us to ask questions, just drop a comment, say stage and we'll bring you up here. It'd be helpful to have more people interacting. And while we're waiting for some comments to come in, but again, if you want to come up, let us know. We want to pull you up here and get you visible. But Mike, I would say the biggest thing is that asking questions. Mm-hmm. So asking good questions to uncover what their needs are and not make assumptions about, what their goals are. Yeah. So finding out what their goals are and asking a lot of questions tends to help. And then you can accommodate by answering those questions and putting them at ease. Because I think to your point, Mike, I'm just going to chime in real quick on this, but I'm a DS. So I've studied this a lot. I've taken this. I'm a very high D, and then I have a higher S. I have a very low I. So I have to, and I know you're going to get to this, but I have to raise my I in public settings. But if I was only going on that appointment with my D, right, leading with the D personality type, I would turn a lot of people off because to your point, the S is high. And I did run a number real quick. 69%, you're right, are an S.
Really? 69%?
Yeah, 69% are an S, 3% are a D, high D, 11% high I, and 17% high C.
Yep. Guys, and thanks, Mike, for chiming in on that. And Michael, who you are, right? So immediately, almost in the same sentence, you were talking about, there you go, Kathy, thank you. Immediately in that same sentence, Michael, you were like, I know how I need to adapt. I know I need to bring the I up in certain situations. And that's like music to my ears, because if you know who you are and you're like, great, I know who I am. Thanks. Personality test, time 30 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. Not true. The big takeaway is how you need to adapt to others. And so final on the S is that you want to hold their hand, grab their hand and hold it. Almost 7 out of 10 people that you ever talk to in the world are going to be in high S, right? So this can transcend to your interpersonal relationships or your family or, your friends and spouses sphere and all the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, the Schnucks cashier, right? So we want to make sure that we're making that adaptation in bulk to the S and holding their hand and using your mom or your dad voice of just like, Michael, hey, I know this is a big change, but when you hire me and my team, and we're going to do a great job. We have a deep knowledge of the market. We understand what it takes to win. We sell a lot of homes in the area, and we're going to give you step-by-step process of the way so you don't feel overwhelmed. You're educated and you can make decisions with ease. So see how that much different that sounds than like the run and gun traditional kind of like, hey, choose me. I'm the guy. I've got a great sign and I've got a great haircut and I'm going to sell your house fast. Like that's just not what an S needs to hear. Okay. Now, high C or conscientious, analytical, reserved, precise, private, systematic. We've all got an uncle. We've all got a cousin. You yourself might be a conscientious, or I say it's sometimes control, right? Because you want to have control of the situation. You like the analytical piece of things, like the data. And you can always tell you're talking to a high C just because you might ask them what they're interested in a house, like what they like about a house. You're showing them a house, or you're on a buyer consultation with them, and they're infatuated with the numbers. They like the price per square foot. They like the days on market. They like running the comps themselves. I used to take leads back in the day, and I'd ask people, hey, so, when we go out and see this house, how many other houses did you want to see? And they'd be like, well, there, fella. And then you can hear the spreadsheets in the background, like they'd already run the numbers. So when I hear a high C, when I hear a conscientious person, I can tell it's their dominant trait. I've got to go full data mode. I got to go full nerd mode and like run some comps, get into the weeds in MLS. And when I meet them, I'm going to speak their language and discuss some of the triggers, some of the numbers that I know is going to speak their language, right? I might say something to the effect, hey, Lisa Dickerson, I know you're out there. Lisa, hey, I was looking at this, we're at this house right here, and I know you were interested in this particular area. What I'm finding right here is this house is $191.38 a square foot. That's fantastic, because I'm looking at this right here. The majority of the ranches in this area are selling for $210 to $217 a square. This is a super good deal in terms of numbers, especially since it has a really big backyard and a third car garage. Those types of things don't factor into price per square foot because it's not the living area of the house. That further reinforces the idea that this is a solid play. I haven't seen anything sell sub 200 square feet price per square foot in the last 365 days. Now, I'm exhausted from saying all that, right? That's just not my style. But that's where I've got to go, guys. If I want to impress a C, or at least speak their language, get on their level and make him feel, he or she feel like, man, this is the man. He's my agent. The buck stops here. I've got a good one. That's where I got to go. And if I go home and I'm tired from speaking all this data language, that's fine. I can face plant in the mattress, but I've just made some money by just making that small adaptation and that small observation of, hey, I'm working with a high C here. Does that make sense, guys? It's amazing how we can turn data into dialogues and have it not sound salesy, have it not sound weird, have it not sound pushy, because people are interested in that. They can't find what's on a CMA. You are a high C, Lisa. Yeah. Hopefully you were like, yeah, I'm vibing with that. That's good stuff. So make the adaptation is what I'm saying. So high D's, the main adaptation you want to make there is don't waste their time, or don't be a storyteller, right? High I's, you don't want to make them feel left out. So engage with them. If the lead wants to tell you a big old story about how Jimmy Bob had a third car garage and he worked on his Camaro for days and days and days, and one time the jack slipped out and it almost crushed his arm, and we about had a heart attack, and it was right at Thanksgiving, and blah, 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 blah. Just nod with them and tell your own Thanksgiving story, or laugh, or tell them a joke, or whatever it is, because you want them to feel like you like them, okay? And you probably do, but make them feel that way anyway. High S's, we talked about that. They fear change. So hold the hand, nurture them, let them know you got their back. That's comforting, especially in a listing situation. And obviously the high C's, they fear being wrong. That's what they don't like. Have you ever had that person, you're like, hey, sir, ma'am, the sun rises in the east. And that person will be like, well, technically, it's April, so the way the Earth tilts and the way the sun's position, it's more like northeast. Like they just don't like being wrong. Okay, so make sure that you're precise, make sure that you're accurate, and when you're using data, don't just show them the data and be like, "What do you think of this?" Make sure that you come prepared with your analysis, right? So that's DISC. Now I'm going to give you a little another little graphic here. Can we share that second one? There we go. And we can share this with you on Facebook or wherever we can share it in our library. But these are your needs, there's your emotions, and there's your fears. That's just a summary of everything that we talked about. Now there's one. Any questions on this, or anybody want to take the stage and ask?
I've got a question. Yeah, if you guys want to jump up here, please drop a comment and let's pull you up, please. I have a question, Mike, in regards to this. How do you you have let's just say somebody calls you, whether it's a lead or a referral or whatever the case may be. Your first time talking to them over the phone, have not met face to face, but let's just say they call, they want to sell their house. You're having a conversation prior to going out to their house. What are some things you're listening for to pick up on what their personality style is, so you might better know how to give your presentation when you meet them?
Yeah. So awesome question. So over the years, just in general, I've learned to just speak in an open-ended style, because for precisely that reason, Michael, is I want to listen to how they answer the question. I want to listen to their tone, their cadence, and just what some of their deeper fears are. I might say, so Michael, if you could wave a wand, have you thought about a price, or have you thought about a time to go live? Whatever those questions are, like, what month would you really want to be closed out? Or if we could do this, how would you feel about this? And I'm going to listen to that response. If it is super gregarious and it is like, oh my gosh, I don't know, you're in charge. I mean, what do you think? What do you think? I mean, I heard April's good, but I heard August is bad, and blah, 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 talk. Right. Hi. Okay. So I might tell a story about how, I've listed so many houses. Spring really started in February, and, really April's a great time. A lot of houses go on the market, end of May, June, first school, end of school year. So I can tell my story and relate to that eye. Case in point, if I'm asking open-ended questions and I get met with those open-ended questions by very reserved and quick answers, or like, look, I don't really care about like the whole, real estate process. Like I'm looking for top dollar. I'm looking for multiple offers. I'm looking for a quick close because we want to move the Ozarks and be near the kids. Okay, that's a high D, right? But those open-ended questions, right? You guys could get the idea. I'm not going to do S and C, but like we could do a number of different things. But like I would always encourage you guys always to ask an open-ended questions: who, what, where, when, which, why, how. Because that engagement that you get and that explanation in those answers, that's when you have to turn your radar up and listen for the context clues. You're going to learn a lot about their motivation. You're going to learn about their fears, their excitement, how stressful this is to them, like just the oh crap-o-meter, with sellers if they've never done this before. A lot of different things. But I would encourage you guys, most times realtors, rookie realtors or agents that don't practice their scripts very much, usually the fear of the unknown of like, what if they say this or what if they say that? And they're always focused on their presentation and what they're going to say next to make it perfect. I would challenge you guys, move away from the presentation, like practice it to your version of perfection. Now focus on your performance. Like when it's a performance and when you're always thinking about how I can work to be better, then like you're not worried about what you're saying. You're more worried about what you're listening to. Does that make sense, guys?
I think to that point too, Mike, if you want to chime in, I think, having the listing presentation, extremely important. Having a buyer presentation, extremely important. And when you can start to kind of figure out what these people's personality styles are prior to meeting with them, or within the first few minutes of meeting with them, you have to tailor your presentation style. It can't be the same presentation for all people. What do I mean by that? Like when I would go on listing appointments, my presentation was exactly the same. How I delivered the presentation would change.
Yes.
And so my presentation slides didn't change. But if I was going on an appointment, like I'll give you a real life example. I was on an appointment one time and I had a tablet, and the guy was, we didn't even sit down. He's like, yeah, here, come into the island. We're standing at the island. I started my thing. He took my tablet away from me and he starts flipping through it. He's like, okay, right.
Wow.
I had to pick up the pace. He was a high D. So I didn't even finish my presentation. I said, look, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to market your house. Here's the comparables. Here's what we could price it. I got right to the point. If I sat there and said, well, wait, let me show you this and let me show you all this and that, I would have lost that person. The same is true if I'm meeting with a high C personality and I know that ahead of time, or even if I don't know that ahead of time, but when I'm on the presentation, I pick up on that. To your point, Mike, inundate them with data. Pull out all of your comparables, speak list to sale price ratios, speak price per square foot, inundate. So the presentation stays the same, but it's how you present it that changes.
Yes.
The style changes based on what their personality style is.
Yeah, guys. And, I know some of you decently well on the side, so you'll hear my candidness. And it comes from a place of contribution and help. But when I say this, don't be offended, but if you are in real estate and you're like, man, I'm not a numbers person, I'm not a data person, you're in real estate, you should be, right? So working that language or making that adaptation to the high C personality, in my opinion, should not be terribly difficult because you have a wealth of information on MLS. You can go to all the different resources and third-party websites that you know of. You've got Realtor Property Resource, which, by the way, if you guys don't know, use that. Wow. Realtor Property Resource. Really cool, really helpful. Lots of different stats, lots of different data that you can pour through. So for me, I always said, if I have to go down the high C adaptation road, I can be dangerous in any zip code in St. Louis if you just give me 10, 15 minutes to research it, right? I can come up with the dialogue in a pinch, right? I don't need to do that every day, but when the time comes and I know that I'm dealing with that personality, I think it's mandatory, right? So one final, if we got 3 minutes.
Yeah, you got time. Much as you need.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can we flash up that third graphic? Great segue into this. And if you guys take the more expansive version of the disc on that link that I shared, it will spit out this. Now, I know it's kind of backwards, but let's focus on this. The natural style, that's me right there. That's from my disc assessment. You can see that I'm really high D, really high I, and there's bits and pieces of S and C. And that's cool, right? That's just me when I'm sitting on the couch, right? When no one's watching, it's just my default state, right? My wife is off the charts SC. So we have to make some adaptations to communicate with each other. And when we don't, we miscommunicate. That's a good word, right? But that's just me, though. Now, when I'm on the clock, there's an adapted style. DISC does a really good job of measuring maybe how you behave and what your profile looks like when you're working or when you're being watched or, when money's on the line, so to speak. You guys see the changes here? I'm still off the charts high. In fact, I'm even more. Well, no, that's still 88. It kind of just looks higher, doesn't it? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Yeah.
I don't know. They're giving me an 88. Maybe this is like 87.5 and they round it up. I don't know. But the changes there are I'm not as dominant. I'm definitely not as much of a stabilizer. And I become a little bit more conscientious. Now, I think, in my opinion, that these adaptations that I make I'm kind of throttling down my results-oriented behavior. Even though that's what I want, I know that can come off too harsh. Much similar to what you were saying, Michael, is that we've got to tame that a little bit because that can scare people. If you're 100, if you take the disc and you're 100 out of 100 on high D, just watch out sometimes. People might think you're being a jerk, even though you're not, right? It can just come across that way, right? People are going to try and unlock you or ask what's wrong all the time, but there's nothing. It's just your personality. But when there's money on the line, you've got to figure out a way to tame that a little bit because people just don't move as quickly as you. And that's what I've realized because I talk fast. If you guys couldn't tell, I talk fast. I like getting results. I like, being influential. And I've just got to slow down sometimes because I've just got to get in people's heads that, hey, I'm a good guy. I know what I'm doing. We can have some fun with this. And I know that this is scary. So I'm going to hold your hand a little bit, right? Even though inside I'm like, just go, come on. Will you just listen to me? Like Jesus, right? So The other thing that you see probably here on the adaptation, and when you guys take this, I mean, I'm not saying spend $45, but if you really want to know what adaptations you need to make, I think it's worth the money. I took this years ago. I probably should take it again because I've changed a little bit. But the S, you guys notice the S is almost non-existent here? So what I think this is, my interpretation of this is when I meet people who I know are scared of moving, my high S personality should not shine here, because if I share that fear with them, or if I overdo it in the cautiousness or the reserved, or if I'm just too accommodating and too nice, now I'm telling people what they want to hear versus the truth. So I've got to maybe on purpose slow that down and let people know, yes, change is scary. Yes, moving is scary. I'm going to hold your hand, but we're going to do this the right way, and just follow me and I got you. Right. So I think there's a different way to look at your personality and the adaptations you need to make. You don't always want to be completely in alignment with people, because that might slow the process down. And obviously, like the high C, I get a little bit more analytical when I need to. So, guys, that's all I got here, but I just want to make the mention full circle here. Step 1, understand who you are. Step 2, understand the adaptations your personality style needs to make when you're dealing with somebody who's not like you. Guys, I think that's conversion. I think over the history of our careers, if we look back at, like, the little time machine, I think we leave a lot of commissions on the table, or I think we lose a lot of deals that would have otherwise happened if we adapt a little bit better. So just be thinking about that the next time you go on an appointment or a listing appointment, buyer consultation, showing, inspection, you're dealing with a vendor. Just be analyzing what kind of personality type they are and try to make that adaptation. See if they speak to you or interact with you differently. It could be a game changer for your career.
I agree with you, Mike. I think that's the one thing that most realtors miss is, one, they don't ever see this or understand it, or two, they see it, but they don't really plug into it to truly understand it.
Yeah.
And so they say things like, well, I am who I am. This is how I do my business. And it's like, well, that's fine, but you're only going to appeal to a certain percentage of the population. And so if we do it that way, why not be adaptable and be able to appeal to the majority of the population and go sell more houses? So it's not necessarily changing who we are. It's adapting to get into rapport with people, and so they feel more comfortable with us.
Yeah. It's kind of like a character you play.
Yeah, honestly, it is. And people hear that, Mike, and they're like, well, that just seems unethical or whatever. But it's not. It's not that we're lying to people or anything like that. We are just changing our behavior such that we get into rapport with people to make them feel more comfortable, so we can build trust and help them accomplish their goal of buying or selling.
Yep. You make the best point of all. And that could just be the mic drop, is that, guys, when you're at a party or you're at a social event and somebody's like, what do you do for a living? I think the default answer is like, well, I'm a realtor and I sell houses. I think what you really do for a living, which would be weird to say this in public, was I create and maintain relationships. I mean, that's what we really do for a living.
Yeah,
that's how we really get paid.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at, are we salespeople? Like, guys, I'll be honest. If you guys know me on the side, maybe you could agree. But like in any given room that I'm in, I really think that I'm the worst salesman there, right? And I wear that like as a badge, because I don't sell anything. Like, I provide a service. I feel like I'm one of the better service providers in any room that I'm in, because I communicate well. I make those adaptations. I'm a great teacher. And I just feel like people need that from me more than they need whatever my sales abilities are, right? I'm selling myself, of course, but like, I can't sell a house. Like, look at these parquet floors and look at that vaulted thing right there. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I don't even know half the terms of what the home features are, but I know the service that I provide. And I know that what I bring to the table can make people feel comfortable about doing business and hopefully doing business with me again. So that's where I think the gap is in some of our businesses, is that we approach this from a sales perspective, a sales lens, than a service lens. And then that way, to your point, Michael, is like, I don't feel like that's me being somebody I'm not. I'm me being who the client needs me to be.
Agreed.
To get through the next stage of their life.
Yeah, totally agree with that. That's awesome. No, it's a great way to put it as well. You mentioned, I've got a question, Mike. You mentioned that you took this a while ago. Do you feel your personality style has changed. You kind of hit on that a little bit. Do you think if you took this today, it would look a little different?
I do. I
Yeah.
think my D personality would be a lot higher, and I think my I has somewhat come down a little bit. I'm still friendly. I'm still gregarious. I still care if people like me or not, but probably not as much as I used to. I also think my analytical would be probably a tick up. I think my S will probably be the same. But yeah, just as we get older or as we experience different things, as we experience success and, you know, peaks and valleys in our business, we just change as people. And I think it's really important, maybe every once in a while, every year or two, to take this again and just analyze which way you're going. Right. And, it's not a good or a bad thing. Just
to piggyback on Michael's question, sorry.
Yeah.
So how often would you recommend taking the DISC personality test if there's a standard like that?
I'd probably just go every couple of years. You know, you're not evolving. I mean, unless you just have like an existential thing happen to you where you're just profoundly different from an experience. I think you can try it every year if you just want to know, especially if it's free. But yeah, every couple of years would probably be smart.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good question, guys.
Yeah. Any questions? Anybody have questions? Please drop them in. And yeah, I'll say that too. Like when I first took this, I was probably 25 or 26, and my eye was pretty high. And then in my late 30s, my eye had come down substantially. Whether that's just life experience or whatever the case may be, but my personality style definitely evolved. And I've noticed that too. Like I became the person that didn't want to be out as much or in the public. I became more of a homebody. And so, it's interesting to see how things evolve over time. But I think, and there's nothing to do with this really, but like the biggest takeaway here is I feel first understanding it. So understanding yourself, to your point, take this, look and see how you tick. I also see this help a lot in relationships as well. Because if you see how the other person, their natural style and how they operate, you might understand your significant other a little bit better as well. Like my 100%. Wife, she's a much higher CS than I am. So like, she just the things are different. So like knowing that, I understand how her brain ticks a little bit more. It definitely helps in our relationship.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And guys, it's, I joke around with some of I fly out to Portland a lot to see my coaching company and some of the agents out there. And we just talk about that. Like when we're at a restaurant or when we're, at a social event or something, and, like, what do you think that person, like just in 10 seconds or less, what do you think their DISC profile is? Like we just quiz each other on that. It's super dorky and it's super like, just, we shouldn't be talking about work, but like, I think it's just helpful to just snap judgment. That's a totally high S right there. Like, and you want to know how I know is that this is what they said. Like, oh yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. So it's just being better at listening and observing and making that think on your feet adaptation. Guys, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy to think on your feet in the context of real estate because you have so many other things. But if you can somehow get into the better column, we're not the best column, but like good, better, best, you can move into that better column in DISC analysis. I think you're going to be making a little bit more money than you used to. Because people notice this stuff and the adaptations you make really go a long way. So that's all I got, guys.
For sure. Appreciate it, Mike. One more question.
Tend to change as you, Steve, 100%, 100%. Just if you have a really good year, or if you have a year where you're just getting a lot of referrals, or there's a situation where you've tapped into a different arm of your business sphere wise or lead wise, whatever it is that you're doing, where you're like, I got this, I figured this out. Chances are you are already making the adaptations. You just don't know it, but it'd be smart to take that just to confirm it. That'd be cool.
Good stuff, Mike. Thank you so much. Appreciate you always willing to help out on this. Great content. Thank you. And so if anybody's watching this later too, the recordings, drop comments in. We'll be monitoring those. So we'll make sure we get any of those questions answered. But it looks like people, enjoyed it. So thank you, Mike.
Well, thanks, guys. We'll do this again soon. And thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Good seeing you guys.
Likewise. Thank you, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.